Let's go back to the
Good
60.
excuse me. Good evening, Wareham, and welcome to the Select Board meeting of September 12th, 2023. May I have a roll call, Mr. Chadwick?
All right, tonight we have in attendance Mr. Slavin, Ms. Wertz, Mr. Bowen, Ms. Whiteside, and Mr. Sullivan. Not with us tonight is Mr. Bessie.
Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Bowen.
Making the old guy get up, not right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we go on to residents' comments, I'm going to ask for a moment of silence. Yesterday was the 22nd anniversary of an extremely upsetting event in the history of this country. The fire department yesterday had a service at the Wareham Fire Department at the downtown station. There were services throughout the country, and I would like to offer a moment of silence for the recognition that the suffering of many, many people had. Thank you. We will now go to residents' comments. Residents' comments on non-agenda items shall be limited to 2 minutes. There will be no more than 10 minutes of residents' comments during any one meeting. And based on past practice, the select board will not respond or comment. And let me see, where's my list of attendance? There they are. Is there anyone who would like to address this board? Please raise your hand. Seeing none, I will go on to announcements. Mr. Slavin, please.
Okay. First off, yesterday was 9/11. I would like to ask for a moment of silence for all of those who passed away at 9/11 and those who continue to pass away from the effects of what happened on 9/11.
I just did that, Mr. Slavin.
I was out of the room doing some stuff, so we'll do it again.
Fine, we'll do it again.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you, Mr. Slavin.
Oh, okay. This week coming up, for those of you who are of the Jewish faith, is the Jewish New Year. And about 8 days after that holiday, which is 2 days, is the Yom Kippur, which is the highest holiday in the Jewish religion, which requires that we fast for 24 hours and basically do no business and actually do nothing at all except go to the temple and pray for those who are departed, etc. And I just want to wish everybody of that faith Happy New Year. That's it.
May I ask what year it is, sir?
I'm semi-brain dead today, but it's 5,700 something.
That's what I thought. Thank you. Ms. Wertz, announcements?
No, I'm good.
Thank you. Mr. Chadwick, announcements?
Just that fall sports are in full swing. So if you're driving around, even at 5 o'clock at night, just be careful of kids crossing roads, because school's technically out, but sports are still in swing. Also, I know we said this last meeting, I believe we did. School buses are still out, and when you see the big red flashing lights and the stop sign, it means stop. It doesn't try to go around. It doesn't mean slow down and then zoom past. It means stop. There's a pretty hefty fine, and there is nothing I love more than standing out in front of a car that tries to go around a school bus. So just a reminder for everyone.
Thank you. I have a couple of announcements. As you all know, we are going to be holding a Veterans Day parade on November 11th. We will step off at 10 o'clock from Bessie Park area and go to Center Park. We are still looking for participants, marching bands, floats, that kind of thing. We have already booked some really kind of neat ideas, including some stilt walkers and some balloon makers, twisters, those guys who make animals and stuff. So Derek, your kids are going to have a good time. And that's it. Let's go on to appointments. Mr. Chadwick. May I have a motion on for Jillian Morton, please?
All right. I move to appoint Miss Jillian Morton to the Board of Health Committee with a term to expire June 30th, 2024.
Is there a
Second.
second? Motion made and seconded, and I note for the record, it is not a Board of Health committee, it is Board of Health, period. Is there
Sorry.
any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote, please. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
and myself, yes, 400. Mr. Tropiano, if you're here, please raise your hand. I think you're PT, Patrick P, yeah. Would you, Noah, would you let Mr. Tropiano in, please? Thank you. Mr. Tropiano is an applicant to become a full-term member on the Board of Health. He will be replacing Larry Perry, who's been on the board for quite a long time, but who wants to step back from being a full member to being an associate member, which means that he will continue to go to meetings, but that he will be able to step up to vote. And Mr. Tropiano, can you identify yourself for the record and let us know why you want to serve on this board, please?
Yep, I'm Patrick Tropiano. I live on Dowd Ave in Wareham. I want to serve because, I miss being on the Board of Selectmen, and I know I have a lot to offer to that particular board, and it would be nice to be able to help out.
Excellent. Any questions of Mr. Tropiano?
Is there anything to help out?
The one question that somebody might ask would be, do you feel that because you're in the septic installation business that you have any conflict of interest in serving on this board, please? Could you
Well,
answer that question?
Yeah, technically, I think I would, and but I really don't do any septics in Wareham anymore. So, and that would be the only conflict I have with the board, and so I will continue to do that, not do any septics in Wareham.
Thank you. Any other questions? Then I'll accept a motion, Mr. Chadwick.
I move to appoint Patrick Tropiano to a term to expire June 30th, 2024 to the Board of Health. Excuse me, 2025.
Yeah. Is there a second to that motion?
second,
Motion made and seconded to appoint. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
and myself, yes, it is so. Mr. Chadwick, I'll accept a motion on the change of membership for Lawrence Perry from full member to associate member. This is at his request.
Okay. I move to change from a full member to, from a full member to associate member with a term to expire June 30th, 2024 for Mr. Lawrence Perry to the Board of Health.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to appoint Mr. Perry to the associate member. Any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
and myself, yes, it is so. Noah, would you remove Mr. Tropiano back into the attendees, please? And I'll accept a motion on Wareham Housing Authority. The Wareham Housing Authority has a vacancy because we put an individual from that board onto one of our registrars. Under the law, he cannot serve in both positions, so he resigned. The Housing Authority has made a recommendation. You have a copy of the recommendation for Mr. Prano. This term will expire only, we have the authority and the right, actually, the responsibility to appoint somebody until the next election, which would be May 7th. I just want to double check that date. Yep, it is May 7th. May 7th of 2024. So, Mr. Chadwick, may I have a motion, please?
Yes, I move to appoint Dennis Prano to the Wareham Housing Authority with a term to expire 5/7/24.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to appoint Mr. Prano. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
and myself, yes, it is so. It's not 7:15, so is there anyone here from Red Robin International? Please raise your hand. Barbara Armstrong. Would you let Miss Armstrong into the meeting, please? This is a discussion and possible vote for the change of officers for Red Robin International, and you have the paperwork in your packet, so. Miss Armstrong, would you identify yourself for the record, please? Miss Armstrong, would you identify yourself for the record, please?
Can you hear me?
No, not very well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Don't know why it's not working. I dialed in, but my name is Barbara Armstrong with Red Robin International.
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to identify yourself by name.
I'm trying to. I don't think you can hear me.
I can't hear her.
I
at all.
can't hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me at all?
Yes, I can hear you now a little bit better.
Okay. This is Barbara Armstrong with Red Robin International Inc.
And you are here on behalf of Red Robin to look for a change of officers, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Do any of my board members have any questions of Miss Armstrong? Hearing none. Do you have anything that you'd like to say to us, Miss Armstrong?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you. I'll accept a motion, Mr. Chadwick.
Yep, I move for a change of officers for Red Robin International at an address of 2421 Cranberry Highway, Suite 350 of Wareham, Massachusetts, 02571.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion to change the officers? All of the paperwork is in order. Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
and myself, yes, it is so. Ms. Armstrong, the paperwork will be forwarded to the ABCC sometime in the next several days. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. The discussion and possible vote for a change of manager for Rancho, that needs to be in a hearing. We did not advertise for the hearing, so that is not in front of us. It's not quite 7:15, so may I have a motion on 9B, which would be the first half curbside commitment? Mr. Chadwick, please.
Yes, I move to approve the fiscal year 24 first half curbside commitment in the amount of $1,316,225.
Is there a
Second.
second motion made and seconded? Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
and myself, yes. Mr. Chadwick, may I have a motion on the opt-out and reduction fees for the item 9C?
Yes, I move to approve the opt-out and reduction fee application for curbside billing fiscal year 24 in the amount of $1,003.76.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
and myself, yes, it is so. I'm now going to ask the individuals who are here for a 7:15 hearing. I believe Mr. Madden, this would be the hearing on the JP Noonan's fuel storage. Mr. Madden, would you raise your hand? And if there's anyone else here representing the applicants, would they please raise their hand? Noah, would you let Mr. Madden in, please? And Mr. El Khalasi? Mr. El Khalasi as well, please, Noah, thank you. Excellent. May I have a motion, please, to open the hearing, Mr. Chadwick?
I move to open the hearing for JP Noonan.
The whole thing, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I move to open the hearing for JP Noonan, an applicant from JP Noonan of 2381 Cranberry Highway in West Wareham for flammable fluid license for keeping, storage, and sale of diesel fuel and motor oil in accordance with the provision of Chapter 148 of Mass General Law.
Is there a second to the motion to open the hearing?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion for opening the hearing? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
and myself, yes. The hearing is now open. Mr. Madden, you are here on behalf of the applicant, and would you identify yourself for the record, please?
Yes, I'm,
Just as a question, Mr. El Khalasi, are you here on behalf of the applicant or to speak
No.
as the applicant? Okay. You're here to speak on the application? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Mr.
Thanks.
Madden, go ahead, please.
Bill Madden from GAF Engineering here on behalf of JP Noonan Transportation, Inc.
Could you explain what you're looking for, sir?
We're looking for a license to install two 9,980 gallon diesel fuel oil tanks, a canopy, and a dispensing station at 2381 Cranberry Highway. It's where they currently conduct their operation right now. As part of the project, they're going to remove an existing 9,980 gallon tank that's situated between a couple of buildings on the site. And it's my understanding that though the existing fuel tank that is there is not installed consistent with fire code installations. So they're intending, or what they'd like to do is remove the non-conforming tank and place two new conforming tanks on the property to create a new place of storage tanks, create a new fuel dispensing island to fill the trucks that occupy the space now, and do some stormwater management improvements that are also required due to the new construction. And that's really the gist of the project. It's also a request to have 500 gallons of waste motor oil stored in drums on the site, and that is also part of the application.
Thank you. Do any of my members have questions for Mr. Madden? Mr. Slavin?
Bill, the tanks, I'm assuming, are above ground.
Yes, they are. They're above ground. They're double wall tanks and installed above ground on a concrete pad in a fenced enclosure. The enclosure of the tanks is protected by steel pipe bollards that are around the perimeter of the tank location.
And the area around the tanks, from the ground up, there is some type of prevention for any kind of spillage.
It's a double wall tank, so I don't believe there's a requirement for spillage. You know, those tanks feed the dispensers. It's piped underground to the dispensing station that's on the fueling island that's shown on the drawings.
Okay, so from the tanks, we're going underground with pipes and then coming back up to the dispensing stations?
Correct. It'll be double wall piping with the underground piping as required by code, and that'll those pipes will discharge in a sump that the dispenser sits on. So and then then it's connected to the dispenser, and the dispenser dispenses the fuel to the vehicles. The area around the pad at the dispensing station is a requirement that it holds a minimum of 10 gallons of spillage if there were some spillage. I think there's around 20 gallons proposed at this site with the layout of the concrete pad.
My other question, Bill, would be the pipes that go underground. there is nothing that prevents if there's a breakage from that going into the ground and getting into the water tables.
Other than it's a double wall pipe and it's has sensing capabilities in the system that would detect any leakage.
Okay,
So there's the piping, distribution piping is contained within another pipe system.
understand. I have a little concern about that, but thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wertz, you had your hand up. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. The second tank that you said was going to have used oil in it, I think you said it was, is that is that just a tank to hold this residue and nothing else is done with it, or what?
Those are barrels.
Barrels?
They're barrels, yeah. Or motor oil drums. They're
Yeah.
not part of the storage. They're separate, the motor oil drums.
And does it sit there forever? Do you get rid of it? What happens with it?
No, the drums are stored inside the garage building. And when they start to get to their limit that they have in there, they'll call a waste oil dealer
Okay.
and have that material taken away and substitute empty drums for the full drums.
And my second question is, have you had any feedback from any of the abutters?
We have not. The abutters have been notified. We have not
Okay.
been advised by anyone of any concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chadwick, do you have any questions?
I have none.
Thank you. Mr. Madden, was this request brought before either the planning board or the zoning board of appeals?
We consulted with the planning board and we received correspondence from the town planner's office back in February relative to the project. Yeah, yes, we did.
Thank you. And you've also been inspected by the fire department, which requires fairly strict safety precautions, and the tanks have been on record or will be on record with Massachusetts tank storage facility, you know, that list that goes on forever.
Yes, and I think that assuming that the storage facility is approved by the selectmen, then we advance that to the fire department for their review. They have been given an advance copy of the plans thus far.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who has any questions of Mr. Madden? All right, I'm going to ask if there's anyone here who would like to speak on behalf of the applicant, please, Mr.
No, not on behalf.
Not on behalf.
Not on behalf.
Okay. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on behalf of the applicant? Please raise your hand. Is there anyone here who would like to speak against the application? Mr. Al-Khalasi, would you identify yourself for the record, please?
Yes, hi, my name is Nazi Al-Khalasi, 20 Tower Terrace, Wareham, Mass. I'm not necessarily speaking against. I'd like to some clarification. Is that right now there is dispensers and they sell diesel fuel? Do they have a license? They are in business, or this is something new from scratch?
No, if I may, Madam Chairman,
Please.
There is an existing, actually, I believe there's 2 tanks down there now. There is a 10,000 that's situated between the existing buildings that exist. We're intending to remove that tank because does not meet all the proper installation requirements. So that tank will be removed and these 2 tanks will be replacing it.
Right, but my question is, are they in business in sale of these motor fuel diesel right now? Or can you pull in and pump diesel and I pay them and pump diesel? This is my question.
I'm not 100% certain on that. I don't believe that's the case, but they do provide diesel for the trucks that are serviced by them, their own equipment, and I believe they may have some contract trucking that they provide fuel to as well.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Madam Chair, through you. So they do have a current license to sell diesel. That's not new. It's existing.
Yes.
Is that true, Madam Chair? Do they have license on record?
I am not aware of a license on record, sir, but I did not go back and look prior to this, I only looked at the current application. I believe there may have been a question about licensing way back in the olden days. But what is being presented is clearly an upgrade to the current facilities, in my opinion. Upgrade to the current facilities as well as removal of a tank that's been there for a while.
Okay, what's a while?
I can't answer that question.
Over
Mr.
2
Madden.
years?
I'm sorry?
It hasn't been over 2 years that it's not been in operation.
I can't answer that. Mr. Madden, can you answer that?
I believe it has been. I'm not aware that it has not been there for less than 2 years. It's pretty sure it's been there for a fair amount of time.
But if I may, Madam Chair, in our general commercial, in our bylaws, a gas station, diesel or gas are not allowed. So it requires a variance. Anywhere in the town of Wareham, you're not allowed to have a gas station and a sale of diesel or gasoline with a dispenser without a variance and a site plan.
Mr. Madden?
We prepared complete site plan application, was submitted along with this application, as well as the plans of the detailed fuel system installation that was prepared by Web Engineering. And our correspondence that we received from the planning department, and if I may just recite it, it states, this is not a change in use or function, so I don't consider it the subject to zoning site plan review under 1371. Replacing a non-conforming use with a similar equipment within 2 years is allowable. However, moving the concrete pad further west would reduce the need for possibly significant grading in the rear, would maintain the buffer and would provide more room to pass by between the building and the pad. So that was what Ken Buckland provided us back in February. We did submit an application to the building commissioner, and they wanted to see the full construction drawings. They weren't prepared at that time. They are prepared now, and pending an approval, we would forward this to the building department for a full building permit application, and the fire department for their review and permit as well.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Mr. El Khalasi? Is
What's
that all?
Mrs. Watson? No, the 2 year question, the 2 year thing is still in question. If it's over 2 years been shut down, that's abandonment. They're gonna need a variance and a full site plan review with the zoning board, not the planning board. Anything automotive, it's a state law. It has to go through the zoning, not planning.
I'm gonna
So-
make a suggestion.
Yeah.
If I might. I'm gonna ask that this board continue this hearing so that we have some of these questions answered. I would suggest, Mr. Madden, that you meet with, on behalf of your client, with the building commissioner as well as Mr. Buckland. And if what Mr. El Khalasi is suggesting is the case, then I would ask that you come back. So yes, Mr. Slavin.
I'd continue on that line. I'd like to get an answer as to how the Noonan has been functioning at that particular facility. It's really not a gas station. In the
Okay,
true
Mr.
sense of the
Slavin,
word.
this is going to be part of what is brought up later. May I have a motion, please, to continue the hearing to a time unspecified?
Okay.
Never mind.
I move to continue the hearing for JP Noonan of 2381 Cranberry Highway, West Wareham, on flammable fluid licensing for keeping, storage, and sale of diesel fuel motor oil in accordance with the provision of Chapter Law 148 of Mass General Law to a unspecific, to a different time.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to postpone or to continue the hearing to a date unspecified. Any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Swartz,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
and myself, yes, it is so. Gentlemen, thank you very much, and I guess you know what your homework is.
We do.
Thank you,
very
Madam
much
Chair.
for your
Thank
time.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you, ladies.
Good evening. Let's go back to 9A, Mr. Chadwick, discussion and possible vote to reaffirm the select board fees. We do this every year. You have a current list of what our fees are. And we look at them every year. We can certainly look at them tonight and not vote on them tonight if you want to do more homework, but every year we do a little bit of telephoning, dialing for dollars is what it's called. We check with surrounding towns to see whether our fees are way out of line in terms of being too low or too high. And of course, they are right where they need to be in terms of our neighboring towns, as well as the South Coast in general. Ms. Wertz?
Seems like we just did this yesterday. And we had the new gentleman, inspector just on board. He did a lot of this. He did a lot of
No, he
work.
didn't. No, he didn't. These are our fees. His fees, if you're talking about the building.
No, I mean,
inspector,
he looked at changing. Okay, I see. He wasn't doing packaged goods stuff.
correct.
Yeah.
These are our licensing fees.
Okay.
Would you
So-
guys like to okay them? Do you want to think about them for a couple of weeks? What would you like to do?
When was the last time we increased them?
As of 11/22. We looked at them. We look at them every year.
Yeah. I'm of favor of keeping them at this space for the moment. I know we could make a little bit more money if we raised them, but we've got so much being raised and so much costs increasing in so many people's worlds that if everyone else feels these are good and viable, I would be inclined to not raise them at this point.
But Mr. Chadwick?
I'm gonna just tag off of Miss Ward said. Everything's going up around us. I mean, I haven't seen anything that's not going up. The only thing that's not going up is everyone's pay. So I would like to keep these the same as well.
Okay, I'll accept a motion.
I move to keep the select board fees the same without changing them.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to maintain the fees as presented. Any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I'll go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
and myself, yes. Let's see. Let's skip down to item 9E. Discussion and possible vote to adopt a code of conduct as suggested by MIIA. I've given you in our packet a copy of a suggested code of conduct policy. This has actually been adopted by many other towns. A lot of what's in this code of conduct policy is in our volunteer handbook, which not very many people read, obviously. But it's very straightforward. MIIA is our risk management company, and if they suggest that we adopt this, I think it's probably a good idea. It talks about who is, what you're expected to do and what you're expected not to do in terms of following the open meeting law, the ethics law, procurement laws, in terms of how you behave with other people and toward other people. And I think it's myself a pretty well-written document and very straightforward, and I would request that you suggest that we adopt it. Yes, Ms. Wertz.
So what I would say is, one of the things I had to get straightened out is I didn't understand why an insurance company was telling a town what its code of conduct policy was. Then Ms. Whiteside explained to me who MIIA was. I had a chance to scan this and I scanned every paragraph, and I think it's more than reasonable, but I'd almost like to have a little bit of more time to actually read the darn thing and digest it.
Anyone else? It's been adopted by several towns. We've had it since last week.
I got it today.
You want to put it off for a week? I'll accept a motion.
I move to adopt the MIIA Code of Conduct.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second,
Motion made and seconded to adopt the code of conduct as suggested by MIIA, not MIAA, which is athletic. Silly Whiteside. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Mr. Slavin?
just so everybody understands, Meyer is the company which is a part of the Mass Municipal Association, it's a different division. And what they do is they represent the town of Wareham for liability, risk, etc. And when they put something forth, it's for our protection, not for theirs so much as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion?
I just think, because we're using an acronym, so folks at home know
Yep.
it's Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Agency.
Thank you. Not the Massachusetts whatever the other one that I had written down, which is Athletic Association. Jared gave me a hard time about that. Any further discussion on the motion to adopt?
I thought we were talking about football. I got all
I
excited.
know you thought that, and then you should have known better. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
and Mr. Chadwick,
Yes,
and myself, yes, it is adopted. May I have a motion to accept a donation, please?
yes, I move to accept a $100 donation from Mr. William R.C. White to the Council on Aging.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second,
Motion made and seconded to accept a generous donation on behalf of the Council on Aging. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes,
and myself, yes. Let's go back to the discussion regarding center,
Yeah.
correctly spelled center, TRE, park regulation. In front of you, you have a document that was signed in 1986 and then amended in 1987. It's an agreement between the then select board, and it has to do with the use of Center Park, which is in one of our historic districts. It's an agreement between the Wareham Historic District Commission as well as the town of Wareham, or actually the Board of Selectmen. I'll remind you that the charter was adopted in 1977. So that charter document put the town administrator in charge of all town property with the exception of schools. Chapter 40C, which is the authority which grants authority to historic district commissions and historical commissions, does not cover permitting of activities. It covers buildings, either new buildings or old buildings, repair to buildings, that kind of thing. So in my opinion, and I found this because I was looking to see how I had to get a permit for Center Park for the Veterans Day parade. I think that we need to let the public know that in order to use the park, you go to the town administrator who's in charge of the use of the park. Any discussion or questions? No? Then I will accept a motion, please, well, we don't need a motion. There's no motion necessary because it's a policy or a regulation that had no teeth when it was written, and therefore you know what I mean? It's one of those. Okay, we're going to move on to item 9G, and Mr. Chadwick is going to recuse himself from the meeting at 7:39, and he will come back into the discussion once we have disposed of it. Mr. Chadwick,
yep, just trying to figure out.
would you please state that you are recusing yourself?
Okay, hi, Jared Chadwick, I'm recusing this for personal reasons due to knowing both of the dog owners in this hearing.
Thank you. Okay, the reason this is in front of you was because in June, and you have a copy of the letter that was sent to the Cranes. We had a hearing on June 13th, dangerous dog hearing, and both of the Crane dogs were found to be dangerous. We issued a letter on the 14th of June about each of the dogs. The dogs' names are Bushido and Bowie, and there were 6 things that had to be done with one of the dogs and 7 with the other. To date, none of these things have been accomplished, according to Devin Cloutier, who sent you, and I forwarded to you, an email today. She has worked for obviously a couple of months with this couple to try and get their requirements accomplished. And you read the email that she sent, so I don't need to repeat it. Mr. Bowen, I'm going to ask you what we should do now, because they've done nothing. It's not a hearing. I'm bringing it back to the board for help in following what we do next so that we can dispose of the matter. Mr. Bowen, please.
Yes, Madam Chairman. I'd invite them in for a chat. I'd essentially hold another hearing to ask them why it is they're not complying. The reason for that is at some point, if they continue to not comply, we'll have to take some sort of enforcement action. And I'm sure the judge or the clerk magistrate will ask what actions did we take? I mean, over and above what the animal control officer did, what action did the board take to see why they weren't complying? So I'd just take this extra step. If they don't appear, if they don't have a satisfactory explanation, well, then you can consider some further enforcement activity.
Mr. Bowen, would that need to be a hearing that was publicized for 10 days, or, or can we just call them in?
I'd give them 2 weeks advance written notice that says on time, date, and place, please appear before the Board of Selectmen to explain the letter from the animal control officer and to comment on whether it is accurate or not.
Okay, thank you. You know that let me just look at the calendar, because we're now getting into. We are meeting the next week to close the warrant, the week after. So that would mean that we would be meeting on October 3rd, because we have already decided that we don't want to have any other items on an agenda when we have a judicatory hearing. So I'm going to schedule it for, is that the Monday? Is it October 2nd? Or October 3rd? I can't tell. So, okay, that would give us the 2 weeks. Mr. Bowen, thank you. Is there any other discussion from anybody else here? Other than that, I will take his suggestion and schedule a hearing. Mr. Chadwick, you were invited back into the meeting. We are disposed of that issue. Thank you so much. Mr. Chadwick, and I'm going to text him. We have no 48-hour business, so I'm going to ask Mr. Noah, could you let Mr. Chadwick back in? He's raised his hand, sir. Thanks. And Noah, you're going to let him back in. Mr. Sullivan, could you give us your town administrator's report, sir?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairperson. The one thing we're really looking at is obviously Hurricane Lee. That's we're a little bit within the cone. It's getting kind of a lot closer than we would like. So we're just keeping our eye on it. We're experiencing a really strange weather time. A couple communities have experienced some extreme flooding. I know that we for the first time got water in our basement last night, and we never had it in the last few years. And my neighbor had probably over a foot in theirs. So it's just be ready, be careful, and I would not recommend storing things in cardboard boxes in your basement. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Sullivan?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Wertz, do you have a question?
Yeah, and I have just a comment through you to Mr. Sullivan. Our street here in Briarwood Beach, we took 6.5 inches of rain yesterday.
Yeah.
And we've already, I'm told, I haven't looked, that we've lost a foot of the road down towards the water. So that's just what's happening before we get hit, if we get hit with a hurricane.
Yeah, it's it's crazy. This is I don't know if you can really see it, but that's
Yeah,
a road by me.
Wow.
So it's there's our capabilities to deal with massive flooding like that, and just in general, none of the communities have it. So it's something we need to be on the watch for and try and continue on. But when it comes like that, it's unprecedented. So
You all set with your report, sir? Okay. Liaison initiative reports, Mr. Slavin. You, I know, have initiative reports.
Okay, Mr. Sullivan was nice enough to have me sign into a meeting today, which was about 4+ hours, explaining how the school functions as far as their revenue and expense reports, which is just wonderful. I wanted to take a pen and stick it in my eye after a while, but wasn't able to do that quite well. There's no question why nobody can figure out what's going on, because between what they have for DESI from the state and what the school does, it's very difficult for anyone to figure out what, where, when, and how. The only thing I really took out of this is there's no question that the program that the state has many flaws. There are some that are equitable for some towns, some completely inequitable. It's something that needs to be redone. They've modified it once. It's not even close to fixing it. Wareham is, if I remember right, Derek, we easily comply with the foundation request, and I think we're actually over by a substantial amount, which is something we've been told for years. We were underfunding, and it turns out we are not underfunding our schools at all. Just want to make that clear to everybody. That's number one.
So what was the title of the thing that you signed into for 4 hours? And you ate all of your wife's jelly beans while you were doing it, and I am ashamed of you for doing that.
If you would like to give me a minute, I will bring the container out.
No.
About 300.
She's watching, and she will probably have you sleep in the garage.
Do you count all of those jelly beans?
If I ate all those jelly beans, I would plug up the sewer system.
Thank you, Mr. Slavin. Can you just tell us the name of the thing
Mr.
that you
Sullivan,
did
would
there?
you like to give them the name, please?
It was a Chapter 70 tutorial.
Thank you.
Thanks.
For
Anything
those
else?
of you, that's the school. That's just number one. Number two, I had a phone call conversation with Tom Cahere, who is from Bourne actually, but is the executive director of the Cape Cod Rail Transit Authority, which is based out of Hyannis. Tom is the gentleman who lobbied for the Cape Flyer originally, which I contacted when the discussion first came up, and he worked with us to get a stop in Wareham. We both have been lobbying for commuter rail from the new Middleborough station down to Buzzards Bay. There was, this past week, one of the state senators on the Cape was lobbying for the commuter rail to go all the way to Hyannis. Both Tom and I, looking at it realistically, don't feel that it's possible to have commuter rail on the Cape with the existing rail, which is 20 to 30 miles an hour certified. And we don't think most of the people who live there want the train going by the back of the house. So we're continuing to lobby, but there is some strong push, even from the Healy administration, looking at commuter rail coming down one way or another. I just don't know how it's going to end up, but I just will give everybody a heads up on that one there, and I'll keep you informed as we go along. It's the first time we've had positive response to our request for commuter rail up and down the line politically. We have like the MSBA program, which pays for schools to anywhere from 40 to 70% as a rule. There is a bill which mirrors the MSBA for infrastructure. Infrastructure would be for us in particular is a new police station. That bill has started to move again. So we need to keep a close eye on that and make sure that we're actively involved, as you know, the cost of the police station for us is beyond our means, you know, financially. Next piece that we have is trying to think, there was one other thing that came up. Going brain dead, sorry. I think that will be enough for today, sorry.
Okay, thanks. Ms. Wertz? Liaison
Um,
initiative reports?
Not anything that we don't know. The planning board in particular, as you're aware, is very heavily involved in getting articles ready for this coming town meeting, especially in the alternate energy area. So it's been very interesting to see how they've changed some of their pricing, some of their expectations on how to work through those types of installments. And I would say they have helped me and the whole town, I think, get to the next level of understanding what it's like, to work with alternative energies and what we need to do to have them, and to have them so that it's protective to the town as well.
Thank you. Mr. Chadwick, Mr. Slavin, you have your hand up?
Yeah,
Did you remember it?
Yeah, my brain function kicked in, sorry.
Okay.
The other piece, as we all know, the Cannabis Control Commission, which has been floundering back and forth for a year now, came out with the cannabis cafes that we discussed quite a while ago, that we put a moratorium on, which I think goes until the end of this year. And it looks like there is going to be a strong push from the industry and from the Cannabis Control Commission to try and get this actually rules and regulations in the next couple of months. So we need to be very attuned to what's going on to see what it is, because our moratorium, I believe, is only good till December. So I think we've got it coming up on our agenda anyways to talk about.
So are you suggesting we put it back on the agenda?
I think I've already left a note with Linda to see if you would like to do that. Okay,
thank you. Mr. Chadwick, your turn.
I just have one thing, and I forgot to mention it earlier in the announcements, but this last week in the Vikings football game, even though they did lose, Mr. Tyrell Pyers, who I've had the pleasure of coaching since he joined football, is up for Player of the Week at South Coast today. In addition to having 11 tackles on defense, Pyers carried the ball 15 times for 55 yards and a touchdown. I have to say, if this kid doesn't make it to the NFL one day, I'd be very surprised. He's an animal, and he's a freshman. He has always been an animal. He's one of the kids that eats, sleeps, and you know what, football. So if you guys get a chance, please go to South Coast today and vote for Wareham's own Player of the Week.
Thank you. I already talked to you about the parade, and again, I'm encouraging all youth groups, 501c3s. We have a very exciting lineup for the parade so far, and some people working really hard to make that a reality. And Mr. Sullivan, I expect you and your family to be there, because we're doing the balloons for you and your girls. Okay. I will ask for a motion on minutes, please, Mr. Chadwick.
I move to approve the meeting minutes of August 15th, 2023 and August 29 of 2023.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve those minutes. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin?
Yes.
Ms. Wertz?
I was not in one of those meetings, but I believe I can vote to accept the minutes for August 15th and then to approve the minutes of August 29th.
All right, so do you want us to make a separate motion?
We can't combine that somehow?
No?
You can approve both of them.
I don't think I can approve it. I think I can accept it if I haven't been a participant, and I did not watch, I've only watched part of this on television, so I didn't sign that.
All right,
So-
Mr. Chadwick, would you restate the motion one at a time, please?
Yes, I move to approve the meeting minutes of August 15th, 2023.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second,
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any further discussion? For roll call vote, Mr. Slavin,
yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes,
and myself, yes. Mr. Chadwick,
I move to approve the meeting minutes of August 29th, 2023.
is there a second?
Second,
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
yes.
Ms. Wertz,
yes,
Mr.
No.
Chadwick. Mr. Chadwick
Yes,
and myself, yes. I know, I'm confused too. Thank you. Is there any further business to come before this board? And thank you very much. Remember that next week we have a meeting to, we have 3 items on the agenda. I hope it's a quick meeting. We are meeting the next week as well. We're meeting on the 19th, the 26th, and then we will also be meeting in that October, either the 1st, the 2nd, or the 3rd, whatever that is. I apologize for the continued, basically weekly meetings, but we have a lot of business to accomplish. And remember, these are in fact business meetings. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to
Mr.
adjourn.
Slavin. Is there a
Second.
second? Motion made and seconded to adjourn at 7:57. Not debatable. I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Why not?
what? What did you say?
Why not?
Oh, Ms. Wertz,
yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
yes.
and myself. Yes, we are adjourned and no more jelly beans. Good night, Wareham. Thank you very
Good
much,
night.
gentlemen and ladies.